Good afternoon, everyone. This is my second business user group meeting. So I've been in the business now in Sitecore since August. And I think I came to one of these in about October time. And it was in a much smaller place, and there were fewer people. So obviously, the noise is getting out, and the news is getting out around what Sitecore is all about and how people are using Sitecore as well. And I've spent the last sort of 6 months, if you like, trying to understand why our customers buy from us, but most importantly, what is it that we as an organisation help our partners and our customers to achieve on behalf of the customers. So, why are we all really here? Now, I just wanted to share a few insights which are probably blazingly obvious to yourselves, but we'll go through it anyway, because it sort of comes back to why are we all here and what are we actually doing. Now, this is a great piece of actually free marketing for Sitecore. So, in November of this year, Michael O'Leary from Ryanair had a press conference, and this is reporting back from this particular one from the Telegraph, where he had his head in his hands, and he was saying those people at Easyjet has really wiped the floor with us, with their website and with some customer improvements as well. And this really kind of strikes at the heart of what it is that we're all trying to do here, because if we look at the share price of Easyjet versus Ryanair over the period of time that they implemented Sitecore, now we're not saying that the whole share price is down to Sitecore, by the way, before we all jump up and down, but according to their biggest competitor, Ryanair, they think that a lot of it was down to the website, so that's something to consider. You can see that the share price of the two organisations, and bear in mind that Ryanair is a larger organisation and do larger revenues than not now, but in terms of than Easyjet, in terms of the offerings that they do. And of course, Easyjet then joined the FTSE 100. So there's a couple of things here. Competition is key, how we compete. And we're all competing in one way, shape, or form in whatever we do, whatever organisation we're in. And this kind of competition it's probably worthwhile understanding quite a lot about why we're doing these, because, quite frankly, the reason that we are engaged in the work that we all do together is that we're looking at how do we attract and retain our interested stakeholders, who are normally customers, but they could be other stakeholders as well. And when you look at this, it's very easy in a B2B or a B2C context to talk about what is competition, what are we trying to measure, how are we trying to compete. And as you flow through all of these things like revenue and profitability, etc., if you're a listed company and you're talking to the board of a listed company, it all actually flows down to that one thing at the bottom, which is share price, partly because they're remunerated very much around this piece, but also because their key stakeholders that they have to keep happy are the shareholders. So being able to drive and demonstrate why we're doing these projects and the impact that it has on those outcomes is extremely important. Equally, though, if we look at another sector which isn't traditionally known as having competition, etc., there's a huge amount of competition in the charity sector, as an example. In fact, you could say there's more competition in the charity sector, especially in this particular economic climate that we find ourselves in, than in the private sector. And in this sector, the charities are competing for mind share. So what is it about the charity and that we're offering that we think is important to you? And then, of course, it flows down into donations and people putting resources to. So we have a lot of charities who are customers of Sitecore. And really what they're trying to do and what we're trying to help them with is how do they get their message across and how do they compete for what is actually a finite resource in terms of the charitable effort, resources and donations that are available for them to take in part. The interesting one is that the last one of these is government. And this is the only one that personally I feel is slightly different. Because at the end of the day, government bodies are separate to the people who are dependent, if you like, on the impressions that we have of the service that we deliver. So the government bodies, the agencies, the executive arms of government are the people that are doing the day-to-day, and they're responsible for the budgets, responsible for the resources and efficiencies and the way that they're rolling those out. The political parties, though, are the ones that, at the end of the day, want the votes. And there's a disconnect between these two. And I sometimes think that actually this is not a great marketplace for Sitecore because there isn't that really tight relationship between the competition element. We do have lots of government organisations, But a lot of government as well at the moment is going down an open source kind of route, because there, the competition element isn't so important. You know, if you look at open source and how it's created, it's a whole group of people that have to come together to agree on something. And their rationale behind it isn't necessarily a financial motive. It's about a common good. So actually, it's quite aligned to potentially some of the social elements, but not necessarily coming up with leading-edge competition capability that will give that competition edge. So just a few thoughts on where I see those. And then if you look at that then, so the key people we're looking at here are in these examples, customers, donors, and voters. Now, if we step back a second, the world has changed so much in quite a short period of time. I'll take the retail example of that. You know, do you remember the old days where if you wanted to buy anything, you had to go to a shop? It wasn't that long ago, actually. You know, before sort of the mid-1990s, that was the only choice you really had around that piece. Then, of course, we had internet-only plays coming in, and obviously Amazon being one of the early ones and obviously one of the biggest ones now. And recently, we're seeing a lot of the traditional bricks and mortars organisations getting their acts together really well to provide the combination of online and going to collect, or getting the same level of experience potentially in the stores. And the MD of John Lewis after Christmas made a statement that said that the winners of this past Christmas period were those that combined both the online and the on-store with click and collect kind of thing. And when you looked across it, the retail winners were those organisations. So you can see that come into play. But we're really starting to get to see now is this multitude, if you like, of ways of engaging. And that's really why we're all here today, because it's not just the internet, it's not just the way that we do things, it's mobile, it's the combination of how do we link all these things together and get all of the touch points that we've got across any type of connection that we might have with a customer. But what that does, though, it says that the customer potentially has got more choice, and a different kind of choice as well, a different kind of engaging. And that presents a lot of challenges for us, because we've got so many touch points. How do we manage all of those? How do we do it in a strategic, coherent way that we're actually optimizing our conversion rate, or optimizing the attraction of new clients and existing customers as well? And that's led to this whole area of we now have the capability to personalize a lot more. Because so many people have so much more choice, and we've got so many more information points through the internet to go and look at and do our own research. How do we personalize that experience for people? And today we're going to start to go along those journeys. And the interesting thing as well is that at our last business user group in October, we had some excellent presentations around digital marketing system and what it could do in the personalization. And since then, we've been working specifically with partners and with certain customers, and we're seeing a huge take-up in terms of the organisations that, A, are turning it on, so they're now gathering all of that information to be able to make some decisions on how they then market and use that information. And secondly, on actually doing the whole personalisation piece as well. And those organisations are starting to see some real benefits come through, and you'll hear from some of those today as well, which is great. And just on that point as well, I said I'd promised to do this as well. Obviously, I talked about Easyjet, which is a customer of ours, and Monarch are presenting, so thank you very much for Monarch doing that. And as Monarch said to me, what they've done is they've understood what Easyjet has done and taken it up another notch as well, so we look forward to seeing some of that today as well. But finally, really, just to complete this story, so I worked for 11 years for SAP, and there was a period of time, 1990s through to 2010, this area where most organizations were focused on how do we manage our resources in our organization? How do we manage our people, our money, our assets to do it efficiently? Now, that was great, and we saw a huge amount of change, if you like, in the way organizations managed their whole way to market and what they did. But it was really focused on the cost, the efficiency. The finance director was really happy. But the sales, the marketing, the chief exec, it wasn't exactly really interesting for them. It was managing a cost line. What we're moving now more into is how do we manage that whole experience with the customer? And this starts talking much more towards the revenue driver, how do we attract those new customers? How do we get that market share? And this is much more interesting, obviously, to a CMO or to a chief exec. And Forrester have coined this period in time that we're talking about, 2010 to 2030, as the age of the customer, which, if you think about it, is exactly what it is. And we're just at the start of this age. And again, we're all here today to understand how do we get the most out of what we need to provide in this age of the customer. And we would strongly propose that Sitecore is obviously the platform that starts putting together that framework to understand who the customer or prospect is, to target them in a very clever and special way, to get them loyal to you as a brand, and to get customers for life, which is what we're all looking to do. So, a takeaway for me really is that it is all about competition. Everyone is competing for something. And our target point is to say, how do we position our offering, our brand, our service, whatever it might be, in a way that we can do that and compete very effectively and very well. And that then means that this whole area of what our platform is, our Sitecore platform, which is looking at the attraction and retention of customers, has got to be built into our business strategy. And what we're starting to see is some organizations like a Confused.com customer of ours, where obviously it's all a complete online premise, well, it is their business strategy. The CEO is the project sponsor, and they manage it all as if it is core to what they do. And there'll be extremes of how well it's built into that business strategy. But one thing I would say is that if you feel that you need some help putting together the business case or the arguments around why the digital strategy should be core to the business strategy in your organizations, then please come and talk to us, because we're doing an awful lot of that kind of work at the moment. So with that, I'll end. The message being that competition is all around us. What we're looking to do here is to differentiate ourselves against our competition. And I hope that as we go through the next couple of hours or so, that you have a really enjoyable time, and we'll be on that journey together. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Simon. Just before we get on to the main presentation, there's just a couple more things that we wanted to share from our point of view in the customer enablement team that I hope is of interest. So for those of you who don't know, the customer enablement team within Sitecore has been going in its current form throughout the last 18 months. And our role at Sitecore is really pretty much what it says on the tin, enabling our customers to get the most out of the investment in the product. So we've grown quite significantly over the last 18 months, and we now have quite a steady team. And our role really encompasses two areas, one of which is account management. So many of you will have come across myself and Phil in your travels. And we also have training, which is obviously a major part of our business as well. So not just for customers, but also for partners. So Katie Mosselbrook is our Customer Enablement Director, and she oversees that team. And obviously myself, Phil, have been here for a while. Brian has just joined us recently, and Candy, many of you will have come across as well. So what exactly do? We did a customer survey about 3 months ago to all our customers to get an idea of what people thought about Sitecore, about how you perform as an organization, how you found the product, and how you found dealing with us. And the results we got were actually pretty good. We got almost, I think, 90% positive feedback, which is obviously reassuring. There was a few comments in there which we'll be following up on as well. But there was also a couple of comments that said, well, we're not entirely sure what you guys are for. Why are you there? How do you fit into this partner relationship that we have? If we're a direct customer, when do we approach you and about what? So we put together a little slide just telling you what it is that we do in customer enablement. So we have a whole host of interactions with customers and partners, mostly through partners. We do have some direct customers, but most of the work we do is through our partner channel. So it's mostly product updates, product demonstrations. We probably spend about half our time doing that kind of work. We also have consultancy support. So Anthony leads our digital strategy team. So that's a team that helps our partners and yourselves building the DMS side of your product offering. We have the user groups, such as this. We have roundtables. We had a charity roundtable last March where we brought together about 15 of our charity customers that are using Sitecore and just let them talk amongst themselves about what it is they're doing with the product and the challenges they're facing, and Simon mentioned some of those in his presentation as well. But it's really interesting, not as a sales opportunity for us, but just as a facilitation, just to get people in a room and sort of understand from each other how they're using the product. And we're going to evolve those and have more sector roundtables over the next 12 months. We also have webinars, which you've probably seen for things like ECM and Sitecore 7. We do the monthly business user update, so everyone on our mailing list should get that at the end of each month, and that just tells you a bit about what customers in the UK are doing with Sitecore, as well as other sort of specific UK news. Customer survey, I've mentioned already, we're doing the next one in April, so if you do have feedback, please do give it to us, because we can't do anything about improving our offering or software without your feedback. And finally, we have something we call internally customer intelligence, and what that is a database that we try to keep of what all our customers are doing with the product in the UK at any one time. And it serves for us a great reference point, just to understand how people are using the product, where perhaps we can come and help users get more from the product, and so on and so forth. So that's something we started about 18 months ago. The other side of it, training, I'll cover in a second, and obviously licensing. Any additions to licenses, license upgrades and maintenance we handle through our team as well. But it's just worth saying, of course, this is all great. We do a lot of broadcast communications, but any one-to-one interactions we would always do through our partner channels. So your partner would always be your first point of contact. We call ourselves account managers, but we do that through our partner channel. So I thought it might be interesting to just cover some of the stuff that we've seen over the last 3 months. I'm going to whiz through this because we're a bit up against it in terms of time today. But we obviously have a lot of contact with customers, and we have a lot of view about what they're doing with the product. And so we are seeing a lot more maturity over the last quarter, 6 months than we ever have done. So I've been here, like I said, for about almost 2 years now. When I started, I mean, everyone was using Sitecore as a CMS, and it's been gratifying to see that over the last 6 months, actually, a lot more has been done on the DMS side of things. So personalization is starting to be used a lot more, and we're starting to see real business metrics coming off the back of that as well. Analytics is starting to be used more. We're starting to see people playing around with engagement plans, the marketing automation features within Sitecore. So there's an awful lot of work happening behind the scenes, and we try to keep up with as much of it as we can, but often we only find out when we go out and meet partners and customers. So it is becoming more mature, and customers really are making headway and showing real business benefit for making use of the DMS part of the product. So we've got about over 20 customers in the UK using DMS at the moment. We're seeing that growing and accelerating almost every week. So just this week I found out about 3 more customers who are using the DMS in ways that we hadn't even realized. One customer is using it for sales leads qualification, for example, which is a really interesting case study. And we've got various other customers at various different stages. Anthony's going to talk a bit more about the DMS later on today. We've got a huge take-up of Sitecore 7 as well. We've seen a lot of customers who are moving on to Sitecore 7. For those of you who don't know, Sitecore 7 is our search-based architecture version of Sitecore. The idea behind Sitecore 7 is you can store millions of content items and search in the back end in milliseconds. And on the front end, you can apply search faceting, and you can do things like search boosting as well. So for us, it was a major version change, and we're seeing more and more customers making use of that version as well. And just finally, Adaptive Print Studio. For those of you who don't know what Adaptive Print Studio is, it's our product that we have that was actually built by another company years ago when we actually acquired them and acquired the product and staff with it. But essentially what it allows you to do is to combine designs that you create within InDesign with content that comes within Sitecore. And the idea behind the APS is that you have one true source of content, and it accelerates productivity, reduces spend in print, but crucially, it centralizes content. Because Sitecore is ultimately predicated on a content platform, so why not use it to store content for other channels that you're delivering through in your organization? And what do we expect to see in the next 12 months? Well, based on what we've seen so far and the acceleration that we've seen, quite a lot. So we have a very strong vision for where Sitecore is going as a product and as a company. John's going to talk in a little bit more detail about the roadmap for marketers, based on the feedback we have from the last user group. We'll be focusing more on how you can actually use some of the features we're going to be bringing into the product over the next few months. We've got more customers coming online using DMS. I've just mentioned that. And APS, again, something I just mentioned, we're expecting that to balloon. We've already got about 7 or 8 opportunities in the UK for this at the moment, not to mention globally. So APS is becoming a surprise product success for us at the moment. And of course, we're going to continue to support yourselves and our partners, even more so over the next 12 months than we have been doing so far. I just want to very quickly cover training. The reason I want to cover training is not the most exciting subject for many of you. You've already been through training, perhaps it's not too relevant, but it's worth noting because we have had an enormous take-up on things like Sitecore 7 training recently. We've got a lot more customers now using DMS, so it's absolutely crucial that you know about some of the training we're offering. This isn't a sales event. We never sold it as a sales event. It's knowledge sharing, so I'm just going to make you aware of the training that's available for business users. So many of you have probably already been through some of this already. The advanced user course is probably our most popular course for anybody who's using Sitecore. We have a business user course, which is a sort of semi-advanced user course for customers who've never used a CMS before. For customers who are starting to use a DMS, we have a course called DMS Fundamentals for Marketers. And the idea behind that course is when you're starting to apply things like goals and looking at analytics and all that kind of stuff, we have a course, a one-day course that will take you through how to use all that. And finally, for business users, we have a course called ECM Fundamentals for Marketers as well. And ECM probably speaks for itself. If you're starting to use Email Campaign Manager within Sitecore, this is the course, is one-day course again, that will take you through how to use the features within the product. And it's obviously worth noting that all this is supported by solution-specific training. So whenever you do training on Sitecore, your partner will always have a second session with you to take you through how that applies directly to the solution that you're using. On the developer side, just very quickly, we have a certification course that all our developers go through, so all your partner will have Sitecore certified developers. That gives them access to things like support and code upgrades and so on and so forth. And we have a Sitecore 7 upgrade course, a one-day course that we've just released to get developers up to speed on the latest version of Sitecore. We have a DMS.net developer course. Again, it's a one-day course if you're starting to develop on Sitecore to start using DMS. Again, it's a one-day course that we run that you can come along to. And we have an advanced.NET developer course, and that is not so much concentrating on the things you need to know, but also the nice-to-haves as well. So if you've been certified for 6 months, you can go on the advanced.NET developer course and just hone your skills. Again, it's just a one-day course. On top of that, we have virtual training. So if you have distributed users who perhaps can't get to the same location, we have virtual training. So we control that from our offices, and then we can train people around the world or around the country if needs be. We need 5 more participants to make that worthwhile. We also have e-learning. So we have an advanced user course now available in e-learning. Worth noting that virtual training and e-learning aren't certified at all. These are just, obviously we can't control who takes the exam when it's remote. So these aren't certified, but they do have the same sort of content that the on-premise courses have. So we have it for advanced user and for system administrator as well, which is more of a developer and sysadmin related course. On top of that, we have bespoke and on-site training. So if you want to have training in your offices, we can provide that. And we can provide bespoke training if you have particular requirements. And just worth mentioning finally that we have training available both our London and Bristol offices. So if you're in the West Country or in Wales, that part of the country, we do have offices and facilities down there as well. So just one last thing from me. We need your input. I mentioned customer survey. We got a good response last time, but we want more responses. We're going to act on all the feedback that we get. So the more the merrier. Please do fill it in when it comes out again in April. John Field, who'll be doing the product roadmap session in a second, he's looking for customers who are using Sitecore to get their feedback to understand how Sitecore fits into their business processes. The idea behind this being to see how we can better adapt Sitecore to fit the way that you work. So John's really keen to speak to people about how they do that. If you want to give feedback, then John will be here all day. He's a gentleman sat down here with a beard. And he'll be delighted to talk to you. Otherwise, please do speak to us another time when we can set up a conversation with John. But again, your feedback, we can't do anything without it. So, user group feedback, again, after the event, if you've got any comments or suggestions, please do feed them through. And as we have done with this one, we will factor it into the next user group. And if you've got any other questions or comments, again, we're just always happy to hear them. So we've got an agenda for the day. I'm not going to go through this again because you'll have seen it. It's on the table in front of you. So I'm going to now hand over to Andrew Graves from Trends Business Research, who has very kindly offered to do a keynote for us today on the subject of personal touch. So, Andrew, if you'd like to come to the stage. Thank you very much.